stand up to welcome our guests, please. Let's receive our Baba. Former President of Setembro with regards to honor our event. And let us welcome him. Okay. Vamos aplaudir a sua entrada, por favor. And of course, now, there is a space. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Briefly, we are starting our program to commemorate 103 years of our national hero and icon of the nation of Africa as well, Antonio Agustin Neto. To start, let us stand for the items, national items. Vamos começar agora com a introdução dos hinos nacionais de Angola e Nigeria. Por favor, a vossa atenção. Muito obrigado mais uma vez e sejam todos bem-vindos para a celebração desta efeméride, o dia em que a Angola e o mundo se unem para comemorar o Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto. We are inviting our special guest to join us to celebrate the Pan-Africanism and political career of Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto, who is icon for Angola nation, icon for Africa, and icon for the world. Thank you very much for coming once again. I would like to allow me to be bilingual, speaking Portuguese and English at the same time, because we have also a beautiful room to come and to welcome you as well, as a brother and sisters who decided to have this minute with us to celebrate this great day for Angola, for Africa, and for the world. A nossa mesa redonda terá como tema Pan-Africanismo no percurso político de Agostinho Neto. E como não deixaria de ser, dada a importância que é a figura do Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto, passaria por apresentar os distintos convidados de honra to thanks again, introduce and recognize the unique presence of a distinguished dignity in this room for a round table. As we can testimony, me and my right, His Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, Papa, former President of the Federal Republic of Angola, who had the opportunity to see and to private in person with Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto. His testimony will be very wonderful for the new generation. Acabamos de apresentar a Sua Excelência Olusegun Obasanjo, ex-presidente da República Federal da Nigéria, com quem também privou momentos especiais com o Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto, e conforme as nossas figuras aí podem apresentar. De seguida, os nossos pais da independência deixaram o seu legado. E temos agora a transição geracional, temos a reconhecer a presença de Sua Excelência Dr. Abdion Olomide, é o ministro de Águas para o setor do planeamento e desenvolvimento urbano. Welcome. Gostaríamos também, Excelência, de apresentar e reconhecer a presença do senhor Suleiman Yaya, ON, and the CEO of Rose Hill Group. Mr. Suleiman, welcome. Como não deixaria de ser, would like also to recognize the presence of the President of Angola, Nigeria Business Council. I would like on the president to tell the people that you are the president and they stop Angola and Nigeria being constantly. We have also to recognize the presence of distinguished member of the Corps Diplomatic with us. They give also this harm's regard to Angola. We would like to ask another clap of hands to Angolan community present here. Sua Excelência, terminadas as apresentações de forma geral, gostaríamos de convidá-lo para podermos saborear com uma oração de sapiência sobre o dia 17 de setembro, que é o dia memorável, que é o dia que marca o nascimento de um dos grandes ícones, consideramos o poeta maior. Por essa razão, as nossas crianças, a nossa comunidade aparecerá aqui em frente, em presença, para declamarem aquelas mais belas poesias que Agostinho Neto deixou como nosso legado. Excellencies, I'm inviting His Excellency José Bamukina Zau, Ambassador of the Republic of Angola, Nigeria.
Excellency Olusegun Obasanjo, former president of the Federal Republic of Obasanjo, His Excellency Lobo de Nascimento, who are follow-up in Baizum, from Angola, His Excellency Babaji Sanyo Olu, Governor of Lagos, with his representative here, His Excellency Ambassador Ibrahim Zana, representative by the Council, Your Excellencies, member of the diplomatic corps accredited in Lagos, distinguished architect Fifi Ejindo, president of the Angola Nigerian Business Council, His Excellency Suleiman Yaya, president of Rosit Group, distinguished Professor Adewale Onagbesa, the University of Lagos. Thank you so much for coming. Distinguished Malam Jibrin Ndase, Director General of the Board of Nigeria, representative here. Angolans present here, our community. Dear Mr. Fernand, thank you so much for coming. Our friends of Angola, Mr. Ashok and his wife, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, dear guests, todo mundo que está a nos acompanhar através das redes sociais, das plataformas by Zoom, muito obrigado por estar conosco, acompanhando esta nossa pequena intervenção, que nós vamos, de forma preferencial, oferecer em inglês, em função do contexto. Thank you very much for your presence. Thank you very much for the warm you lend to this ceremony of tribute to the founding father of the nation and the national hero of Angola, Dr. Antonio Agostinho Neto. We are extremely pleased to be celebrating this day in the city of Lagos, the former capital of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. As you know, President Agostinho Neto had a very special emotional and historical connection with the city of Lagos, as it was there during the regime of President Murtala Mohammed that he was honored by the University of Lagos in the 1917s with the prestigious award of Doctor Honoris Causa. This award from the University of Lagos, combined with his political career, made President Neto an essential figure in the history of political ideas in Angola and Africa, whose principles today for the philosophy of African brotherhood. In fact, Dr. Agostinho Neto, in his political career, shared his ideas with African leaders from different regions of Africa, namely Marien Ngouabi, Congo, Brazzaville, Murtala Mohammed, Nigeria, Sékou Touré, Guinée, Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana, Amilcar Cabral, Cape Verde, Samora Machel, Mozambique, Robert Mugabe, Zimbabwe, Samu Juma, Namibia, Jomo Kenyatta, Kenya, and the leaders of the various liberation movements. The Federal Republic of Nigeria provides financial support so that the first government of Angola could function fully, and also deducted 1% of its civil servants' salaries to support the Angolan House for Independence. For this reason, we Angolans are grateful for the strength of this brotherhood. And in return, President Neto, the island of Luanda, after General Murtala Mohammed, to immortalize his memory for his contribution to the independence of the Republic.
E agora sim, fizeram
The issue of political ideas, speaking of the views and political coherence of President Agostinho Neto in redefining Angola after its independence in 1975 as a starting point for the struggles for the independence of Namibia and Zimbabwe, as well as for the liberation of South Africa from the Enos apartheid regime. President Neto's prophecies were fulfilled with the blood and sweat of Angola, so that we could have a free and independent Africa, which is why his principles today shape this philosophy of African brotherhood. History has its political and sociological psychological dynamics. Today, we have fully convinced that the Pan-Africanist vision expressed in the poem "We Shall Return," or the impossible resignation by Agostinho Neto, his achievements and his political thought will always remain in the foundations of the construction of the Angolan state and in African philosophical thought. To the comrades in arms, the whole generation, the middle generation to which I belong, the new generation, the scholars and those present here, we hope we can take a good note of the lessons of the late President Antonio Agostinho Neto, told in the first person by the Angolan nationalist Lopo do Nascimento and the Pan-Africanist Baba Africa, Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, complemented by the historical narrative presented by Professor Adewale from the University of Lagos. Your Excellencies, I declare the roundtable on Pan-Africanism in the political career of Agostinho Neto open. Thank you for your attention. Let me talk some words in Portuguese because our community in Angola. Sua Excelência Olusegun Obasanjo, ex-presidente da República Federal da Nigéria, Suas Excelências, representantes do governo de Lagos, Excelências, minhas senhoras e meus senhores, muito obrigada e muito obrigado pela vossa presença. Muito obrigado pelo calor que emprestam a esta cerimônia de tributo ao pai fundador da nação e herói nacional de Angola, Dr. Agostinho Neto. A nossa satisfação é enorme por estarmos a celebrar este dia na cidade de Lagos, antiga capital da República Federal da Nigéria. Como sabem, o presidente Agostinho Neto tem uma ligação emocional e histórica muito especial com a cidade de Lagos, pois foi aqui, no mandato do presidente Murtala Mohamed, onde foi distinguido pela Universidade de Lagos na década de 70, com o prestigiado título de Doutor Honoris Causa. Esta distinção da Universidade de Lagos, associada ao seu percurso político, fez do presidente Neto uma figura incontornável na história das ideias políticas de Angola e de África, cujos princípios conformam hoje a filosofia da Irmandade Africana. Aliás, o Dr. Agostinho Neto, na sua trajetória política, partilhou suas ideias e ideais com os líderes africanos das distintas regiões de África, nomeadamente Maria Ngouabi no Congo-Brazzaville, Murtala Mohamed na Nigéria, Sékou Touré na Guiné-Conakry, Kwame Nkrumah no Ghana, Amílcar Cabral, Cabo Verde, Samora Machel de Moçambique, Robert Mugabe de Zimbábue, Samo Juma na Namíbia, Jomo Kenyatta no Quênia e de vários movimentos de libertação. A República Federal da Nigéria, além de prestar apoio financeiro para o funcionamento pleno do primeiro governo de Angola, procedeu ao desconto de 1% do salário dos funcionários públicos para apoiar a causa de luta angolana pela independência. Estamos gratos pela força desta irmandade e, como retribuição, o presidente Neto atribuiu o nome do presidente Murtala Mohamed a uma prestigiada avenida da ilha de Redonda para perpetuar a sua memória pela
Esse é o embaixador. O embaixador. Tá em direto.
Quando falamos da história, estamos a
Embaixador.
falar dos apelos e da coerência política do presidente Agostinho Neto ao redefinir Angola, depois da sua independência em 75, como ponto de partida para as lutas pelas independências da Namíbia e do Zimbábue, bem como pela libertação da África do Sul do hediondo regime do apartheid. As profecias do presidente Neto foram cumpridas com sangue e suor de angolanos para termos uma África livre e independente, razão pela qual os seus princípios conformam hoje esta filosofia da Irmandade Africana. A história tem as suas dinâmicas políticas e sociológicas. A história tem as suas dinâmicas políticas e sociológicas e hoje temos a plena convicção de que a visão panafricanista expressa na poesia Havemos de Voltar ou A Renúncia Impossível de Agostinho Neto, os seus feitos e fundamento político, onde perdurar sempre nos fundamentos da construção do Estado angolano e no pensamento político, filosófico, que a nova geração, os acadêmicos e os convidados aqui presentes, esperamos que possam tomar boa nota com as lições do saudoso presidente Antônio Agostinho Neto, contada na primeira pessoa, pelo nacionalista Lopo do Nascimento, via Zoom, e pelo panafricanista Baba África, Tifo do Segundo Passanjo, cumprimentado pela narrativa histórica de Lagos. Muito obrigado pela vossa atenção.
Muito obrigado, Excelência. Vamos continuar o nosso momento, depois de recebermos essa oração de sapiência, de Sua Excelência, José Bamuquim, embaixador extraordinário, plenipotenciário da República de Angola, na República Federal da Nigéria. E assim que disse o Agostinho Neto, eu já não espero, sou aquele de quem se espera. As nossas crianças não querem esperar. Por isso, perante a essa maravilhosa plateia, vão nos mostrar aquilo que lhes vai na alma, aquilo que eles também entenderam sobre a figura imortal do saudoso presidente Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto. I just spoke that Agostinho Neto said, I can't wait. I'm the one who has been waiting. So our child, they decide also not to wait, and they want to show how they feel the life and the story of Agostinho Neto. Please, aproxime-se, and we will hear the poem of Sagrada Esperança and the Renúncia Impossível. Your attention, please.
Good morning, Your Excellency. Good morning, everyone. With your permission. My name is Bukenya. I recite the poem by the first president of Angola, Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto. The title of the poem is We Shall Return. Havemos de voltar às casas, às nossas lavras, às praias, aos nossos campos, havemos de voltar. As nossas terras vermelhas do café, brancas do algodão, verde dos milharais, havemos de voltar. As nossas minas de diamante, ouro, cobre, petróleo, havemos de voltar. Aos nossos rios, nossos lagos, as montanhas, as florestas, havemos de voltar. A frescura da molemba, as nossas tradições, aos ritmos e às fogueiras, havemos de voltar. A marimba e ao quiçange, ao nosso carnaval, havemos de voltar. A bela pátria angolana, nossa terra, nossa mãe, havemos de voltar. Havemos de voltar à Angola libertada, à Angola independente. Obrigada.
Continue the poem. Your name? Okay. What's your poem? Okay. We shall return.
Good day, Your Excellency, by one of Angola's most prolific writers and its first president, Dr. Antônio Agostinho. He wrote this poem when he was in prison in Lisbon, Portugal. The title of the poem is We Shall Return. We shall return to the houses, to our crops, to the beaches, to our fields. We shall return to the lands red with coffee, white with cotton, green with maize fields. We shall return To our mines of diamonds, gold, copper, oil, we shall return. To our rivers, our lakes, our mountains, our forests, we shall return. To the shade of the Mulemba, to our traditions, to the rhythm and bonfire, we shall return. To the Marimba and the Kisans, our land. We shall return. We shall return.
You continue. What's your name? Stephanie Wamba. Stephanie Wamba, what bring for us? What's bring for us?
A poem called The Path of the Streets.
Okay, go ahead. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Your Excellency, and good morning, the Ambassador. Today I'll be talking about a poem coming from the streets or the path of the streets. O caminho do mato, caminho da gente, gente cansada. Oh, o caminho do mato, caminho da sova, sova formosa. Caminho do mato, caminho de amor. Amor grande. Caminho da lama. Amor. Sova formosa. Caminho do mato, caminho das flores. Flores de amor, obrigada.
Thank you very much. Really emotional. É muito emocionante, porque é essa poesia que nos deu a crescer, é essa poesia que nos deu a força, é essa poesia que hoje nos faz estar aqui. Excelências, ouvido o momento cultural de poesia apresentada pelas nossas crianças que não mentem, continuamos a acreditar que Agostinho Neto é mesmo um líder imortal. A história de Agostinho Neto passará de geração em geração. E temos uma grande fonte de esperança, hope, de que a história de Agostinho Neto já se transmite em viva voz na República Federal da Nigéria. Our child can be, most of them, they was born in Nigeria. They have and Angola, the symbol of the unity, the symbol of brotherhood between Nigeria and Angola. Let us clap hand again. Aos poucos, estamos a chegar no principal momento esperado da nossa cerimônia, que se consagra principalmente na mesa redonda sobre a temática que foi apresentada, pan-africanismo na vida política do Dr. Antônio Agostinho Neto. E conforme falamos, as palavras já não são suficientes para mostrarmos o simbolismo que representa a presença de Sua Excelência, Presidente, na altura, da República da Nigéria, Babá Olusegun Obasanjo, que vai nos falar de forma direta sobre a sua experiência com Agostinho Neto. Sua Excelência, Senhor Embaixador José Bamuquina Zau, acabou por inferir igualmente que o nosso painel será associado com, via Zoom, com Sua Excelência, o ex-primeiro-ministro Lopo do Nascimento, que é daquela geração que carregaram a responsabilidade de transmitir à nação angolana, à África e o mundo, que é o Agostinho Neto, que ele não se encontrava mais conosco naquele momento. E nós estamos a falar constantemente da transmissão geracional. Temos agora a presença de um acadêmico historiador, Dr. Adewale, a quem eu convido, I invite you please to take floor in the side of His Excellency, o presente. Ok, please. Então teremos esse painel de oradores e eu peço a vossa máxima atenção para podermos acompanhar com precisão a mensagem que eles vão transmitir. Por favor. Então, por favor. Let us start with the scientific approach of Lagos University, presented by Dr. Adewale, who is a historian at the University of Lagos. Dr. Adewale, please, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Hey. Yeah, even though I'm not so fluent in my Portuguese language, but I try to learn one or two things. So you forgive me, our African brothers all the way from Portugal, from Angola rather, on the Lusophone side of this continent. So just permit me when I try to not to get my pronunciation. I want to begin by acknowledging the esteemed dignitaries present here in the room. First, the distinguished ambassador of Angola to Nigeria, His Excellency Jose Queen Azal. This has been the ambassador. And of course, the entire Angolan diplomatic corps in Nigeria, government officials in the room. But much more importantly, distinguished statesmen and African leaders who, I mean, when I received this invitation, I trembled because I am just a grandchild who has been asked to sit on the table with my father, a man who inspires, a generation of young leaders like myself. And it's a privilege, it's a great honor that I will forever cherish and tell my children and grandchildren that, I mean, once in my life, I had the pleasure of sitting on the panel with our president, President Olusegun Obasanjo. And of course, joining us via Zoom, I want to recognize the great accomplished statesman of Angola, Prime Minister Leopoldo do Nascimento. Let's give a round of applause for 2 minutes. Now, I mean, the ambassador in his opening remark has, exposed us to practically what we should know. But I'll be speaking from, the academic, historical dimension of the topic. But one thing that is out of my analysis is the lived experience, the oral history. As a historian that I am, I mean, when you're doing historical work, you must complement all of your sources with, the oral sources. And that is something that is lacking in my analysis. And I'm happy with that because there's no other person who can, complement whatever I have to say here, other than our Baba, who was alive, who was the head of state at the time when, the history I want to analyze, happened. So he has all of the lead experience. Even if I had the opportunity to interview him before coming here today, I don't think I can still do justice to that analysis compared to what he will do. So whatever I have to say, kindly compliment it with his analysis. So the national founders and Heroes Day in Angola is, an event that is highly, significant and historical, and that is because of the accomplishments, the life, the legacy of Nito, who happens to be the first president of Angola. The Pan-African struggle of Antonio Nito is one that reflects, a pattern of broader African struggle for independence and of course, self-determination. I also want to emphasize that the outstanding statesmen and African leaders that I've mentioned earlier, that is Baba Chief Olusegun Obasanjo and of course Prime Minister Leopoldo do Nascimento, played a critical role during this historical period. For the very first time in the history of Nigeria, specifically under the Murtala Obasanjo military regime, Nigeria maintained a radical, non-aligned status. But much more importantly was the fact that during this period in the history of Nigeria, Nigeria's foreign policy under the Murtala Obasanjo administration was one that gave enormous support to Angola in ensuring our independence from Portugal, which happened, of course, on November 11, 1975. And like the ambassador rightly said, Nigeria provided enormous financial support during this period. And of course, with the concerted effort of President Olusegun Obasanjo, Africa became the centerpiece of Nigeria's foreign policy. But much more importantly also was the fact that Prime Minister Nascimento shared similar history with Dr. Antonio Neto. They shared similar struggles. They were both men that were jailed. At the same time, Prime Minister Nascimento, later became the Prime Minister, and of course, he became the Secretary General of NPLA. The topic, speaks to Pan-Africanism, and as a historian, in the course of analysis, a number of scholars have presented ideas as to what Pan-Africanism means. Different definitions here and there, definitions by James Coleman and so many other scholars like that. But the summary which I can give to this August gathering is the fact that Pan-Africanism refers to an ideology. So it's both an ideology and at the same time a movement, right, that focuses on promoting one, African unity, and of course the solidarity that these African leaders have embarked upon because of the period. To deep dive into history, the origin of Pan-Africanism can be traced to the second half of the 19th century. Specifically, Henry Sylvester Williams, which was later renamed as the Pan-African Association in 1897. So it was this Pan-African Association that formed the core of the political movement that developed across Africa, across Europe, and the Americas in the first half of the 20th century. So the first Pan-African, conference that held was in 1900. Of course, a number of conferences also followed in the years after. The second conference was in 1919 in Paris, and during this conference, African, Pan-African leaders gathered to discuss issues around colonial rule and how anti-colonial movements can be sponsored. The third conference was in 1921, a year before the year the man who was celebrating here today, Dr. Neto, was born. And so that conference in 1921 held in London. He also then, in Paris and of course in Brussels. So the fourth Pan-African conference was in both London and Lisbon, which happens to be the city where he was later jailed in the years after. The fifth conference held in 1927 in New York, the sixth Pan-African conference held in Manchester, which is the most significant Pan-African conference, and that was in 1945. One significant thing about the 1945 conference in Manchester was that it coincided with the promises made by the Allied powers during the course of the World War II, who have promised, to create a just, a fair, and democratic world, immediately after the Second World War, which was, in September the 1st, 1945, and so it created, a momentum for various Pan-African leaders to begin to, assert for democratic rule across Africa. And it's also important for me to say that the figures, that is the Pan-African leaders who were present at the 1945 conference, were people who, later became, at some point, leaders of their respective countries. Just like the ambassador already said in his remark, Pan-African leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Chihuahua Maolo of Nigeria was at the conference, Dr. Thompson of Jamaica, H.O. Davis of Nigeria, Peter Abrahams of South Africa, Adeniyi Ogunsanyi of Nigeria. I mean, the men and, of course, a number of other persons who were present at the conference. And, of course, what later happened after the 1945 Pan-African Conference was that it led to the end of European colonialism in Africa. For instance, we saw that Ghana gained independence on March the 6th, 1957. And, of course, Guinea followed, and a number of other countries in the late 1950s and 60s. Of course, since the independence of various African countries, we've also seen that, a number of Pan-African conferences also held. The first of its kind was in Dar es Salaam in Tanzania in 1974. There was also the Pan-African Conference in 1994, which held in Kampala, Uganda. The third held in Johannesburg, in South Africa in 2014, which is, just so recent. And so all of these conferences, they point to just one thing: a number of Africans who are so conscious, who are so passionate about Africa's independence, Africa's unity, meeting together to put in energy, put in their intellectual power to demand for freedom. You would ask, why Pan-African Conference after independence? It was because African leaders began to see, traces of what we know as neo-colonialism. And so in a bid to address neo-colonial movement in Africa, there was a need for this post-independence Pan-African Conference. Now to NATO Pan-Africanism. It is important for me to say that NATO was inspired by a number of African leaders. First, Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, and of course, maybe a man who influenced him to write a lot of poems, Leopold Sedar Senghor of Senegal. From these leaders, NATO was able to, entrench his belief in what I call African unity beyond just Angola. And, NATO began to see that is a sort of the broader structure that also adds to the argument of African philosophies like Ubuntu, like Agbajowo, in NATO's philosophy. So not just that NATO was inspired, he got his inspiration from these people. His life also, served as inspiration for, more contemporary African leaders. For instance, it might not be so well because this African leader, never really, explicitly mentioned it. But I discovered in the course of my research that they were actually mentees and people that were inspired by the life that Nito lived. For instance, the late president of Tanzania, John Magufuli, all of Magufuli's ideology, all of Magufuli's leadership, traits were something that when you look so closely, they were reflections of Nito. And so we can say that Nito didn't just, copy Pan-African ideas. He also was able to transmit those ideas to people, in more recent times. So from my analysis, just to be as brief, from my analysis of Nito's life, I have decided, or I point what I call, two different concepts. The first concept is what I call the Nitoian model of leadership. That is, when you look at Nito, what are the leadership traits that we can learn from it? Yes, everyone knows I'm not going to become president or states or ambassadors, as the case may be, but in our respective sphere of influences, what are those leadership traits that we can learn from Nito and we can always apply? So this is what I call, or what I term in my own words, the Nitoian model of leadership. The first of these traits is when Nito emerged as a leader of the popular movement for the liberation of Angola. During this period, if there's anything we can learn from Nito, is the fact that Nito was a leader that did everything possible to unite all factions, because there were divisions, there were different groups, and as a leader, your ability to be able to manage men and manage people, irrespective of their differences, is one thing that will stand us out. So as leaders, if there's anything we're going to learn from Nito, is our ability to unite people, irrespective of the differences. The second concept which I have come up with is what I call Nitoism. So the first one talks about leadership character, which is Nitoian model of leadership. And of course, the second talks about Nitoism. So there were some certain philosophies that guided or that influenced Nito's African ideals, his activism, and all of those things. So what are these philosophies? The first of these philosophies is what I call resilience. Just like we've seen with a number of other African leaders who were subject of imprisonment by either colonial government or by military regimes. We would see that, just like Mandela, for instance, who was in prison for 27 years. It takes resilience for you to push through these historical difficult times. And so one philosophy that we all must imbibe as individuals in our respective sphere of influences is the philosophical stance of the philosophical resilience. That is, irrespective of where we're from Nito, is unity. As much as the value, it's also a philosophy, because not everyone believes in unity. Sometimes we have seen over the years, given the nature of states, states were connected to groups leading to conflict, resulting in civil wars. And you see one group saying, "Let us go," the other saying, "Let us go." The way forward is to unite each group. We can always work out our differences. And so, one philosophy we must take away from this discussion is the philosophy of unity, collective unity. I want to also see that Nito also played some role in terms of being a cultural icon. Just like we've seen the amazing young women and men that came here to recite some poems to us. It wasn't just a Pan-Africanist, it wasn't just a philosopher, it wasn't just a leader, also a cultural icon. So not just even the Angolans, but also to various countries So first, within the Southern African region and of course across the continent. I mean, a strong political icon, his poetry, his speeches, his writings, remain central to African intellectual tradition, even such that within the academic setting, we analyze these works. And we have seen people like Amilcar Cabral, Franz Fanon, throughout their period and their life, they keep reflecting on the ideas, the ideologies that Nito put to paper. Nito's governance, left a lasting imprint on Angola's political, cultural, international landscape. Today, just like we're doing right now, he's celebrated as a national hero who secured Angola's independence, supported anti-colonial movement across Africa, laid the foundation of a socialist state. You see that a lot of good on Nito. Because Nito doesn't have his own weaknesses as a leader or as a human, but because as a historian, our past does not, include passing judgment. What we do is basic analysis. You down, oh, he was this, he was, he had the weaknesses. So, I would say that not during the period of NATO's administration of government, there were negative trends, or also faced some severe challenges, including the civil war that lasted until the early 2000s rather. There were political repression, there were instability, all of those things. But when you put all of these things together, one thing is clear. It is not a question of survival, says NATO. I am concluding. It is a question of trust. We must develop our continent without fear, for the future grows in us. It is pertinent for me yet, just like I've been saying, to emphasize to every one of us that NATO's life and work, has left an indelible mark on both Angola and, of course, the broader Pan-African movement. NATO's dedication to African unity, cultural identity, and political liberation continues to inspire modern movements across the continent. Contemporary African issues can be addressed if we all leverage NATO's legacy. So, from me as a young African leader, I am encouraging everyone sitting in this room to reflect on how his ideals of Pan-Africanism can inform Africa's political and economic challenges. When you look at the flyer, there was something developed, achieving a viral economy. Yeah, because when the unity is in place, when you have a leader who is forward-thinking, which is evident in his mentee, Magufuli, who believed that Tanzania to borrow to achieve some giant strides. Tanzania would not have to leverage on some certain world powers to accomplish our political objectives. So these are the ideas that NATO has passed to contemporary African leaders like Magufuli. So NATO's vision of a free, united, and self-reliant Africa remains as relevant as ever. I want to leave everyone in this room with a sense of empowerment and motivation that we must carry forward the ideals of Pan-Africanism in our own lives and our work by illuminating the words of NATO, which says, where love grows, there is generosity. A silent idea, says NATO, is louder spoken words. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We have that the new concept of scientific community, which is Nettorian model of leadership. Thank you very much, and Nettorism and resilience. We keep President waiting for a book on this title. Thank you very much. Thank you once again. In the next few minutes to continue our program, we will hear an important testimony as well from His Excellency Lopo do Nascimento. As we said before, he was the first Prime Minister of Angola at the time of independence, 1975. Please, we have it as a Zoom. Pay your attention, please.
Antes de tudo, gostava de agradecer ao vosso presidente da educação. Eles continuam a iniciativa, fazer esta associação podendo também uma homenagem à apresentação, não apenas ao presidente, mas também, quer dizer, ao povo. Este agradecimento está também relacionado com a oportunidade que a Nigéria concedeu, a ajuda que a Nigéria nos deu longe desde a independência, desde os tempos da Guerra Civil em Angola, que a Nigéria ajudou a ultrapassarmos esta fase de Guerra Civil. Acabamos com as nossas divergências internas entre nós, entre vários políticos, vários partidos políticos, e a Nigéria teve um papel extremamente importante para que nós pudéssemos ultrapassar essa fase. Essas tendências criaram um governo, um Estado único, umas Forças Armadas únicas, o pessoal, a Nigéria nesse percurso teve um papel muito importante. Queremos agradecer mais uma vez o Julianos, tanto das Forças Armadas como da sociedade civil, ajudaram a sermos hoje o que somos. Agora ali, o Presidente teve um papel importante. Não apenas não apenas também em relação dos países chamados países de expressão portuguesa. Mais uma vez, São Tomé, Cabo Verde, foi um papel importante, porque ele fazia parte deste grupo de líderes, vários partidos ou movimentos naturalmente desses países. Além disso, tinha uma visão mais ampla, ligada à visão da libertação dos países africanos, em geral. Foi assim que nós, logo após a nossa independência, os movimentos de libertação dos países, como lutavam para a independência dos países da nossa região, chamada região, instalaram-se quase todos aqui agora. Já havia uma relação com o povo e com o processo nosso. Era de geral em relação à papel, a Nigéria. A Nigéria não sabe se der uma eleição do governo. Foi interessante nesse sentido que eu estava muito mais foi indicado pelo presidente para acompanhar esse processo da Nigéria. E a Nigéria, a primeira visita, decidiu apoiar para o médico e o general Obasanjo o projeto voltado à eleição. Mas lembro no início da Nigéria, primeiro, deu-nos um apoio militar, embora nós tivéssemos equipamento militar dos países, dos países chamados países socialistas, a Alemanha, então, mais foi militar, Cuba, com militarizar, mas a Nigéria principalmente. A Nigéria teve um papel importante votar a missão, a entrada da porta. Havia-se não era com o Pelano, estava aqui com base em Luanda, pelo a diferença da República da Angola, Luanda, e a UNITA e a FENALA declararam criar uma República Democrática do Angola. Tinha sede no norte e uma parte do sul. Então, isso criava um problema bastante grande a entrada por o e a missa.
Well, thank you very much. We have to thank for this speech of His Excellency Lopo do Nascimento. His important testimony and facts that come also to give us more idea how close Angola and Nigeria they are. We can say it's really, it's not a long story. Nigeria and Angola are brother countries. Thank you very much. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will close this panel with the most anticipated moment, which is the intervention of His Excellency Baba Olusegun Obasanjo, who will give us also testimony. Also, please pay attention. It's not a long story.
Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Angola to Nigeria, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and members of the Angola community, my sister, the President of Angola Nigeria people, and my young brother. So, my Christian boys have been nursing a bad cold for a few days. And I thought by today it will be gone. As you can see, after I finished a pot of tea with ginger, you hope that by the time I come up, my but I do hope you can. And if you cannot hear me, just put up your hands. I will do something about my voice. I want to thank, first of all, the ambassador for laying this program on and getting us here in Nigeria involved in this National Founders and Hero Day ceremony. And let me thank the authorities in Angola. One of the things that we tend to do as human beings is to forget the past, and forget our leaders who have made human contribution to what we are enjoying. Not to forget. I think we should thank you most sincerely. Professor Adewale, I want to thank you. And I will not go over the ground that you have gone, because as far as mechanism is concerned, I think you have dealt with the history that should be dealt with, except that the talk of 1900 first Pan-African with William. I believe there are three of that we should not forget. One of them was Gavi. Do not forget them. They were also, as far as history of Pan-Africanism concerned, they made meaningful contribution. Having said that, I will say I concur to most of the things that I've said about definition. The definition, as you said, is a movement and an ideology. Solidarity, our coming together, and then later on, we are talking a little bit about political. Coming together was more of political than economic. That I see as the lacuna in the idea of Pan-Africanism. Of course, the idea is that let us deal with the political affairs and then it means nothing to be added. That's fine. God who is last kingdom, there's nothing there. The other thing that will be added to it seem not to have been added. They should be added when we talk about that. So I want to talk a little bit about the political, and then I will talk a little bit about cultural aspect of Pan-Africanism, and more about the economy. of that. Then, of course, I will talk about personal evidence of the relationship. Nigeria and especially because yes, I am creating, but I believe as far as Angola is concerned, and as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned, will not be left out. One is Boumediene. He made significant contribution. Another one is Fidel Castro. Now, Fidel Castro, I a little bit, and he was one made contribution elimination of colonialism aside in Africa without asking for anything. And another thing about him that I think we should know is the way he integrated the black and the white. It is the only country I visited. I did not see any difference between the black and the white in the country. And when I said to Fidel, that, look, this is my observation, he said, look, the observation is right, but the reason why there's no difference is that there's no white man or anybody you may call white man in Cuba who doesn't have black blood. I didn't know. Well, he was also a great modern Pan-Africanist. The other one is Dr. Mendy was a great after our civil war abroad, then it was in Nigeria. And I was a bit hesitant. You know, because really supported the African civil war. And I wanted to that chapter. So I decided to invite him. And he agreed to come. I wasn't sure. And I wanted him to visit all of the major part of the country. So I wanted him to go to Parliament, to Adamawa, Gola, to Enugu, Lagos. Normally, when we invited the head of state and the clubs of visit, we left him to go around. But because I didn't want to take any chance, I don't know what would happen, I decided to go with him. So when we got to Kano, first embarrassment, yeah, I was in a socialist, nearly a socialist. And then when we landed, any of Kano to go to meet him. He saw my reaction. How do you bring the culture to meet the socialist? So he looked at me and said, my brother, if I have money, I will buy one. So that, of course, cooled me down. And then we went to Kano, had Hussein, no incident. Went to Yola, no incident. Then we came to Enugu, and President Nandi Azikiwe was at the banquet. And of course, it was there, not and President Nandi said, "If Azikiwe here," I said, "It's there, it's there." So we went to greet him. President Nandi said, "How old is he?" Actually, Dr. Nandi Azikiwe then happened to be 14 years older than Julius Nyerere. And Julius Nyerere said, "Oh, it's almost old enough to be my father." Then he said to me that the first person who actually influenced him was Dr. Nandi Azikiwe. And we should never forget that. So politically, these people, particularly from the 1945 Manchester meeting, Pan-African meeting, saw the need to work for solidarity, work for how do you bring African interests, both African in diaspora and African together, and how to sustain it. And you cannot do that successfully. And the first responsibility is the political liberation of Africa. So, August Naneto, Nandi Azikiwe, Julius Nyerere, Kenneth Kaunda, Nelson Mandela, Boumediene, and the other nation face one issue, and that issue is political liberation of Africa to lead to getting solidarity. And not only that, they realize that they cannot achieve the political liberation of Africa and putting African interests together, working in silos. So the Pan-Africanism is also for a political reason to get together, because they saw it at least. That was what Nkrumah said, that the independence of Ghana is not enough. There must be independence, or political independence of the rest. So I want to underpin or underline Pan-Africanism as a political, for political purpose. And that is very important. The second point that I want to make is also cultural Pan-Africanism. And I have been either a part of that, or a victim, or a beneficiary. And I will just give you a few examples. I went to Brazil and in Bahia, which is they call it Akaraje, and it is one of their staples. Then when I was there, they showed me how they worship Shingo, how they worship Obatala, how they worship Ifa. And then there was a young man and a young girl. They said they wanted to marry in the Shango way. And I, even though I grew up in a village where we had Shango, I was not a Shango worshiper. So there are two people who now asked me to marry them up in Shango way. So I quickly sent a message home, and they sent me Oku Shango. So Oku Shango is very important, and so I then put it on the table. And then I asked them to put their hands on me, and I married them up Shango way. Again, Africanism. Now, not too long ago, in fact, about 3 weeks ago, October, when did we go to Congo Brazzaville? About 3 weeks ago. And then President Wilson said we should go and see the shrine. And the shrine is Igbo Oro. It is nothing other than Igbo that we have. And he has done it very well. But you can see the shrine, but you cannot go to the Igbo. Said if you go there, well, whatever you get is your own. Again, cultural Africanism. Now, but the very important one that I would talk to you about is what I did with Fidel Castro. I asked Fidel Castro to give me a house in Havana, which he did. And if you go to Havana today, then I call Abimbola, one day Abimbola, who used to be the Vice Chancellor of IFE, and who, of course, is all about IFA, all about it. So he was the one who took over his house in Havana. It's a very attractive tourist center. He has put in that house every Yoruba god, everyone. Shango, Obatala, Ogun, Oya, all of them. And if you go there, you will see again cultural and Africanism. So what historical, that's what Africanism is, but also the political aspect, there's the cultural aspect, and now I want to talk a little bit about the economic aspect, which we seem not to have paid enough attention to until probably now with what our leader did with African continental free trade agreement, which has now come into effect. That is where our Pan-Africanism must be very, very strong. The truth is this: when we were, and I was part of the protagonist, when we were formulating the policy and writing the chapter of the new EU, African Union, being from Organization of African Unity, we made it intentionally said to ourselves that the Africa in diaspora will be the sixth region of Africa, and that is the Caribbean and all of them there. And that is very, very important. Very, very important. And one of the things that we have been doing, and we haven't done too well, is we have been struggling for economic emancipation, and we haven't done it too well. We have got rid of political, so to say. We have to go back. Why did we have slave trade? Why did we have slave trade? We have slave trade because some people want energy to develop what they call the New World, Caribbean, Latin America, and even North America, make money for themselves. So they got our people sold into slavery and use their energy to make money for themselves. That is slave trade, slavery and slave trade. The unfortunate thing is that when out of maybe Christianity, out of their conscience worrying them, they try to get rid of slave trade. They substituted colonialism for slave trade. They didn't put it behind. Colonialism took place of slave trade. Again, exploitation, using our energy, using our resources to develop themselves. Now, when we started agitating for political emancipation, we realized that, well, if we go, it will be bad. Okay, if what you want is political emancipation, yeah, you will have a flag, you will have national anthem. We started with national anthem of Angola and Nigeria, but we will hold the economic power. And that we are still not out of. And that is where I believe our Pan-Africanism must be attention, the economic liberation of Africa. I like what that, well, we shall return. Yes. NATO return. Yes, NATO achieved political liberation. But where are we? Let me now come to August 9th that I knew. And the Nigeria relations. What happened? When Murtala became my boss, I became number 2 in government. And what we found, one of the issues that was raging in Africa was the issue of Angola. And OAU then have decided that there should be government of national unity. Government of national unity. With Savimbi to come with August Neto, form government of national unity. Then there was, and we came into government, Murtala and I. We were new in government, and there was this extraordinary OAU summit. So I called Ambassador Adeniji, who was in charge of Africa in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Came to me and said, look, draft a speech along this line because we have just come into government. The head of government should not leave the country less than a month in government. And so I was to go to Addis Ababa. Ambassador Adeniji gave me a draft and I touched it up. Then before I left in the morning, I went to the house of my boss, Murtala Mohammed, in the evening, just to tell him. And I said, well, the speech I will be delivering tomorrow. He said, oh, that's how he called it. Let me have that. Let me look at the speech. I gave it to him. And it was reading. Yes. Oba, this speech is too, I must go and deliver it myself. I said, no, we did not plan for you to go to Sababa. We have the plane laid on. I am the one to go. He said, no, this speech will not be made by me. So that is how it went. And you remember part of the speech is that Africa has come of age. We don't want anybody to tell us. And then we said the issue is not the issue of national, our government of national unity. The issue is what is right and good for Angola. And what is right and good for Angola is to support MPLA. That's what changed. What changed the OAU from going on government of national unity to supporting MPLA. And then, of course, we do not have to support alone. There's no use in shouting to a man in a pit, come out, without giving him land to come. So when we supported MPLA for government of MPLA government, we have to give as much resources as we could afford. And the peace president, we gave $20 million in those days. $20 million. And what will be of interest to you, or at least you, is that $20 million in those days was about 12 million naira. It was about 12 million naira. And not only that, another thing we did who have forgotten that, is that because of the situation of Angola, all the airlines more or less boycotted Angola, and we insisted that Nigeria Airlines should be going to Angola. And that was the only way, more or less, for Angola out the rest of the world. We did that because we believe that is what we should do. And there's no, of course, I must say that people of Angola till today appreciate it. And you heard my brother Lopo, who was then the following the prime minister. And let me go on a bit and then talk about Fidel Castro again. When well, NATO's Pan-Africanism came showed in his liberation effort and his reaching out in Africa and beyond. Fidel Castro sent troops. So Angola. And when negotiations started, the US encouraged Zambia and encouraged South Africa. And with the policy of the US, which they call constructive engagement in South Africa, so that cannot be our own policy. And the Secretary of State then yes. 3 times he said he was coming to Nigeria. 3 times I said no. Then we got the West to agree to negotiate. And then the negotiation came to this. Fidel Castro had to pull his force or troops out of Angola. Then Namibia will be independent because South Africa will allow Namibia's independence. South Africa will pull their troops out of Angola. The successor to President Neto, Santos, who was foreign minister before I became president, then called me. And I got there. And he looked at me and said, we know the situation. The problem is this. With all that Fidel Castro had done, and had really done, not only for Angola, for Namibia, build schools for their children, super school. How can you now say to Fidel Castro, come on without your forces? So then Dos Santos then looked at me in the face and said, are you advanced to go into Cuba? Of course, without saying much, I know what he said. I said, no, not at all. Not advanced to go into Cuba. So then said, you have to go to Cuba. So I went to Cuba. And when I got to Cuba, Fidel Castro used to work at night. He worked best at night. So he gave me an appointment for 11 p.m. And at 11 p.m., I went to his office. He has the battle map of the situation in Angola. Up to date, he knows, he knew where every gun was, where the troops were. And I said, oh, Fidel, I come to tell you about victory. He said, which victory? I said, victory in Angola. So, what are you talking about? Can't you see the map? The South African troops are here. Longer here. I said, yeah. And anyway, I told him, look, victory would be South African troops who withdraw from Angola. Namibia will be independent. Then PLA would be fully in charge. But Cuban troops will have to be withdrawn. And then you will come home and celebrate victory. He said, that's what I call victory. I said, the best it is victory. We want it. So he then said, I will get all my troops dead and those who are dead and those who are living out of Angola. And he got everybody out, including those who died in Angola. And he built a new cenotaph, a new remembrance arcade, and it's there today in Havana. And there you can see all the Cubans who died in Angola. Now, as far as Pan-Africanism is concerned, we have now seen what it is. The deficit of Pan-Africanism is economic. As long as we are economically weak in Africa, we aren't going anywhere. We cannot be Pan-Africanism for economic liberation of Africa. And we have to do it together. So we shall return. We shall return. Yes. As NATO was concerned, he returned and achieved political liberation. But those of us who are here now, we are, of course, NATO left. To achieve economic liberation of Africa.
Next time, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes. Thank you very much. It was amazing. It was really amazing. And then that really, if you're with me, Your Excellency, he didn't come here to tell our story, but he showed us how he is himself a story of Africa. Thank you very much once again. Queremos também aqui recordar e dizer que o testemunho que nós recebemos aqui para todos os angolanos que celebramos esse dia demonstra, afinal de contas, quanto custou a nossa libertação. E hoje comemoramos como filhos de África, filhos desse país, filhos de África e filhos de Angola. Muito obrigado. Sua Excelência, Presidente Obasanjo, deixou-nos um grande desafio ao dizer que o legado de Neto nós devemos continuar. Porque eles conseguiram a independência e o panismo político, independência e o panafricanismo econômico, cultural. Agora é a nossa vez para conquistarmos a independência e o panafricanismo econômico. Desta feita, vamos passar para o novo momento cultural. We are actually going to the end of our program. Exactly. Just a little amendment in our program, because the emotional testimony brings for us something that we have also to say thanks and to give the proper words. We believe that God will keep us, will keep with us for more and more years in front. But today we cannot miss this opportunity to say what we feel. Thank you. So Suleiman.
Excellence, not even excellency. Your Excellency, Baba Obasanjo, Excellency Ambassador, my name is Suleiman Yahya. I'm from the business world myself. I'm President Fifi. I'm here to resonate with what you have said. But I think this is like an encyclopedia that we have to respond to. And respond to it. There are certain assumptions, certain misconceptions, especially by historians. Your Excellency, Agostino Neto means several things to several people. To his friends like Amilcar Cabral, Samora Machel, Che Guevara, Chino Achebe. They were like in the intellectual cluster to re-energize the Africanization agenda, the minds of the Africans. Because they understood clearly that colonialism was a control of the mind, a control of the economy, a control of the space. So to fight or to change the perception, they had to change the mindset of Africans. That must be understood clearly. That was why they became poets. He was a physician. Amilcar Cabral was a physician. Che Guevara, they are doctors. They are not literary giants. They were not in that class of. Thank you. They are not professors. But the challenge was the mindset of Africans must be changed. And that's why they wrote those beautiful poems. When I read the poems like silence is louder than spoken words, you know, it's very intriguing. It's not something for an ordinary mind to comprehend. Because in Nigeria, the idiom here is action speaks louder than voice. And that was exactly what influenced General Obasanjo, the Murtala Mohammed Obasanjo era. The first misconception we have here in Nigeria, even when I was a student in the university, was that great speech, sir, was written by not any other person but the Ahmadu Bello University Jamaican intellectual, what was his name? Who was exiled? Not Gabi. He also went to Addis Ababa. I'll come back with his name. And a foreign diplomat. And what happened was, you were to go to Addis on the 3rd, you are preparing to go to Addis on the 3rd of January, 1975. And a letter came from President Ford to Jordan Barracks, commanding African leaders, commanding that when you get to Addis, you should support MPLA, which was led, to support FN or UNITA. They gave you two options, either to support UNITA, FNA, led by this professor, what's his name? Sociology, professor of sociology at Ahmadu Bello University, Daria, very leftist guy. So it wasn't, so the two of you now rewrote that speech of Africa has come of age, and General Mohammed said he's going to deliver it. That was why the original version was just shared to the media after the speech. But that speech, Your Excellency, what does it do? Even though at the OAU meeting, the result was 22-22, it was a draw. 22 African countries supported the government of national unity, 22 African countries were opposed to the government of national unity. And then it was a draw because Ethiopia refused to vote. Uganda, President Idi Amin refused, who was chairman, refused to support any resolution. So Ambassador Olu had to say that there was no decision. But in Ginger, in the Western capital, I read a Time magazine article of that day, of the next couple of days, and Independent of London, the Herald of Nigeria, and several other publications around that it was just apoplectic. It raved Africa, it raved the world, that within a month, the leaders of Africa came back to now support MPLA and the government. And but for Nigeria, that was the beginning of the Nigerian mentality. Because for the first time, we had a president and his General Obasanjo, who made the most significant foreign policy statement that no Nigerian leader has made. And up to today, that has shaped the Nigerian mentality that has made Nigerians to stand tall in the Committee of Nations. For us in the business class, so that was for us. Thank you very much, sir, for clearing that misconception that it wasn't written by that scholar who was not African. That the two of you wrote that speech, and it wasn't written by another person who is less known to us. Ambassador Adeniji. Thank you, sir. So he's Agostino Neto is a poet, he's a strategist, he was a leader, but he did something very significant in 1962, which is also not well mentioned. He visited Washington, D.C. and met with Kennedy, President Kennedy, or the administration, and requested for support to fight the Portuguese colonial government. Washington refused the request. Then in 1965, he visited Cuba and met Che Guevara, Fidel Castro, and they decided that they want to go louder. And that was the beginning of the armed struggle. So it was initially a peaceful movement in 1961. And after 1965, the conversation changed to a military struggle. The United States shifted their position from FMLA to UNITA, and then the government emerged. And we've seen that the current rapprochement between the United States government and the Angolan government, the foundation was laid by Agostino Neto. The economic sphere. We in the business community, we were part of the team that supported the creation of the $5 billion Africa Energy Bank, which was just approved in June 2024 in Cairo. The bank is being driven by Africa Petroleum Producers Organization, APO, and Afrexim Bank in Cairo, two institutions that President Obasanjo was also one of the founding fathers. This new institution would finance oil and gas investments in Africa, upstream, downstream, and midstream. And the headquarters of the bank is going to be in Abuja, Nigeria. Nigeria won the bid for the headquarters of the Africa Energy Bank. We are the lead consultant and the lead drivers. We are also pursuing agro investments in Angola, $500 million partnership JV, and the conversation is ongoing between investors from Nigeria, from Mexico, and from Angola, and hopefully the pilot project will commence in 2025. Now, the biggest challenge for Africa is infrastructure. And at a quiet moment, I talked to President Obasanjo, our father, to please talk to our leaders. The business environment cannot build the kind of infrastructure that is needed to integrate Africa. We need to travel to Angola now, perhaps $3,000, $5,000. So a lot of the young people cannot afford it. It takes 25 hours if you want to go by road. We need an infrastructure like a rail line between Lagos, Luanda. We need super highway. We need joint venture in energy, electricity, oil and gas. to be jointly agreed by the two leaders. And we have the institutions in Africa to fund this big investments. We have Africa Development Bank. They are closer to $50 billion in capital and assets. We have Afrexim Bank in Cairo. I'll take one. We have Afrexim Bank in Cairo. We have AFC in Lagos. We are having Africa Energy Bank in Abuja. But because of political risk, because of counterparty risks, you have to cross countries. You need political leadership. So translating the economic vision, Your Excellency, Mr. President, requires the leaders of Africa to dream of projects that might not be politically viable, because these governments are elected governments, 2, 3 years, 4 years, they are gone. They need to think of projects that will last 100 years, that will open up Africa for investments and also provide a de-risking framework for businesses to leverage on. Finally, we thank you, Your Excellency, and I will end with the point: silence is louder than spoken words, but action, leadership is about action, and leadership is the arena for actors. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Okay. We just have 2 minutes to Dr. Olomide.
Yeah, thank you very much. As a son of Akim, in Abia Rosa, we have to greet elders. And I'm happy to be here today representing the governor of Lagos State. So, my father.
Entendo o jogo deles lá. E que, portanto, conseguir se salvar do rebaixamento, bastava empate. Acho que o técnico pediu para ser.
The ambassador and good people seated here today. It's an honor to be here representing the governor. And I'm happy that all that has been said today are quite in the direction of the governor of Lagos State. I remember then when Baba was head of state, part of the liberation struggle then, I think students were made to contribute money. I remember. Yes, you know, you go to our school, I told them 1 cup was, I remember I was, you know, so I'm happy that I'm here again, and all those efforts are coming fruitful. Again, if we have Angola, I stayed there my first year. That is to show the support of Nigerian government to Angola at this time, and up to today. And from what the coordinator of the group just said, Lagos is already positioned for all this development, and I'm sure that also we'll get the support of the federal government in terms of economic spread all over Africa, and that is something we're really working on. Again, I'm Commissioner of Fiscal Planning and Urban Development in Lagos, and I'm saddled with the responsibility of producing plans for the development of the state. And we have realized that these plans are going beyond micro level now for meaningful and effective implementation. And in line with what I've even learned today, we have a summit coming up sometimes in October 15 and 16. And the main focus of it is opening the horizon of our plans to the whole world,
especially the private sector, because they said the world is before it used to be a big thing, but now we have the world in our hands. It's just a small village. It's not even a village. It's a very, very small village. I'm sure as you are sitting here today, you can see all the, maybe people are watching us from Cuba, from everywhere in the world. So the world is actually a small village in our hands. And the earlier we realize it as such and position ourselves, the better for us. On behalf of my governor, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ogugide. We know that they're coming for another intention for goodwill message. We have to recognize also in this room the presence of Mrs. Olamide Adadida, who is representing Minister of Foreign Affairs. Just 1 minute, please. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency is the former President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I greet you, sir. Greet you, Your Excellency, the Ambassador of Angola to Nigeria. Today, I bring you warm regards from the Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency, Ambassador Yusuf, who is unavoidably absent here today due to work exigencies. On behalf of the people and the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I extend heartfelt congratulations to the government and the people of the Republic of Angola as you commemorate your National Birthday 2024. This is a significant occasion that honors the sacrifice and enduring legacies of the brave men and women led by esteemed founding father, Dr. Agostino Neto, who fought tirelessly for the freedom and independence of Angola. This year's theme, Pan-Africanism, in the political cause of Dr. Neto resonates deeply with us in Nigeria. Dr. Neto's vision of a united and self-reliant Africa is one we share with our Angolan brothers and sisters. The liberation of Angola was not only a triumph for your nation, but a victory for all Africans and the entire Black race. Nigeria is proud to have played a part in supporting Angola's independence struggle, guided by the same Pan-African ideals that have shaped our own journey. As we celebrate this historic day, we reaffirm the strong ties of friendship, solidarity, and cooperation between our two nations. Nigeria remains committed to deepening our partnership in the spirit of Pan-Africanism as we work together to address the challenges of our time and realize aspirations of our continent, such as democratization of the United Nations Security Council, as well as the membership of other strategic international organizations. On this National Heroes Day, may the people of Angola and Africa continue to be inspired by the vision of our countless heroes, such as Dr. Neto, who have paved the way for Africans' freedom. Nigeria stands with Angola in unity and looks forward to continue our shared journey towards a more prosperous and united Africa. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. We actually at the end and with the spirit of continuing, but the cultural moment will continue. By now, let us invite the Angolan community to stay beside to get a picture, family picture with His Excellency President Olusegun Obasanjo. Angolan community start living there. Thank you very much. Começam a se perfilar, vamos fazer uma foto de prosperidade com Sua Excelência Presidente Olusegun Obasanjo, que é prazer ele nos brindar a sua presença nesse momento. Excelência, sim. Sim, chefe. And please, the moment is for pictures, for picture. The picture, Mr. Milano, music, please. The family picture.
Fios feitos de lágrimas passadas, os meninos do ano fazem alegria. Do céu, buscando as candentes, as bonitas, com lábios de dizer nova poesia. Soletram as estrelas como letras, e vão juntando no céu como pedrinhas. Estrelas letras para fazer novas palavras, e vão juntando no céu como pedrinhas. Estrelas letras para fazer novas palavras. Os meninos à volta da fogueira vão aprender coisas de sonho de verdade. Vão aprender como se ganha uma bandeira. Vão saber o que custou a liberdade. Os nomes mais lindos do canal fazem propinhas engraçadas que somavam. Fala com doce com suor. Subtrair com amanhecer por quase. E vi deixou a miudinha pelo meio. Da volta da fogueira, vão aprender coisas de sonho de verdade. Vão aprender como se ganha uma bandeira. Vão saber o que custou uma liberdade. Palavras sempre novas, sempre novas. Palavras sempre novas. Os meninos se inventaram coisas novas. Já deixa as estrelas. Os meninos se inventaram coisas novas. Já deixa as estrelas. Os meninos da volta da fogueira vão aprender coisas de sonho de verdade. Vão aprender como se ganha uma bandeira. Vão saber o que custou a liberdade. Assim contentes a rotina da fogueira, soltar o céu as estrelas já escritas. Novas palavras para fazer redações. Capanguas de bandeira ou machado. Para os meninos, são constelações. Constelações que brilham sempre sem parar. Palavras deste tempo sempre é novo. Poder ao vento, o poder popular. Os meninos à volta da fogueira vão aprender coisas de sonho de verdade. Vão aprender como se ganha uma bandeira. Vão saber o que custou a liberdade. Obrigado. Thank you. So finished. I guess was outside.
The time I saw it, I tried to walk it was not free. So I just I sent you a text.
Eu nunca projetar a vida da nossa história, pessoal. Se envolve em mulheres, no serviço de cultura. Perché sono very fantastic, without you digging down in the room,
Secondo que vocês querem a música, estão a desorganizar tudo. Segundo é que já
a música, a festa é nossa, estamos a continuar a festa é nossa, está organizada agora. Vamos ver agora o grupo de dança. O grupo de dança, os nossos valores não podem ser esquecidos, sabemos que voltar. Vamos embora. But where is the music? Grupo de dança, aqui para frente, grupo de dança. Grupo de dança. Agora vamos começar a outra parte.
A longa trajetória da nossa história, e homens e mulheres, muito bem, seu exemplo, da inteligência, assim está. Muitos foram perderam as suas vidas para que os angolanos alcançassem a liberdade e a dignidade de um povo e de uma nação. Mas este momento não era à vista, possível.
Big boss. I said, you're not going to yes. That will be. Check you. Pen drive. No. Photo. Pen drive. No, I have pen. No, you want something? Laptop.
Sendo funcionário dos serviços de saúde, deixando a Holanda. Eu iniciei a mesmo assim, é difícil.
It's okay. Mas livros que franciscos da ideias, sendo os todos africanos, cuja dignidade cultural e política visava a afirmação do igual modo de fazer um país africano, poderia transversar os que em Angola preparavam os alicerces do movimento de libertação. Nos embriagamos e agora
da possibilidade de encontrar esse turismo, as pessoas não turismo. Em junho de 1950, a igreja de Redonda é transferido para as regiões do Alto, em Lisboa, onde fica cerca de 2 meses. Uma das pessoas que estão internacionais do sul da Itália. Em 1952, a China presidente do movimento popular de libertação nacional, sucedendo a Ivo Machado e Mário Pinto. Em junho de 1973, o Palácio de Portugal, a sua mulher, Maria Eugênia Neto e filhos, para introduzir a atual Kinshasa, onde ela tinha sua sede no exterior. Nesse ano, a eleito do presidente é revelado na Conferência Nacional. Ao longo da década de 1970, Agostinho Neto, líder das atividades políticas e da política do trabalho e o processo de descolonização, esteve atuado a 76 na propriedade Gêmea e Brasil pelo povo. O comandante já disse que era dotado de uma delicadeza singela, carregada de ternura, que era não nacionalista. Em 2009, disse que em 1974, seu regresso é biótico comandante, pode atuar no fevereiro de 1975. O então aeroporto traseiro óptimo é tomado pela população que identifica Neto como o tão esperado Vencido,